Hello, everyone. Let's gather with a song. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, it's the best part about having people here. Good morning. Oh, it's my favorite thing to hear. Thank you. First, we want to invite any kids or kids at heart to go over. We see Sandra over there by that tree for RE playtime if kids want to join. They're also always welcome to stay with their parents here. I just want to remind us all, as we are singing together, the UUA has said outdoor singing, masked, especially vaccinated, is the best kind of singing to have, is great. Try not to sing onto your neighbor too closely. Be mindful and respectful of other folks' boundaries, and hum along if you prefer. First Unitarian is having a rummage sale on Saturday, September 18th. That is next Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. 100% of the proceeds from this rummage sale will support First Unitarian Church. We have flyers available today for those interested in increasing community awareness of our sale. If you'd like to be involved, if you have things to volunteer, if you have time you'd like to volunteer, contact Michael Davison. And we have his phone number, we have his email, and we have him somewhere here. So make sure you get in touch. Priced items are always appreciated.
And let me add that if you, please do take flyers. I had a suggestion that you might tape it to like the back window of your car,
Yes.
so people can see wherever you are that there's something coming up.
That's a great idea. My only other announcement today is for those of you who are interested in being involved in our handbell choir, we are getting the band back together next Sunday. So a week from today at 1 p.m. Some of us affectionately refer to ourselves as the Dingalings. There is no musical experience required. It is a great time, and we encourage you. We're capping that at 15, so please let me know if you're interested. If we have more than 15 people at 1 o'clock next Sunday, then we'll have to close the door just for COVID precautions. All right.
And now I want to read our land acknowledgement, which was adopted by this congregation at our annual meeting earlier this year. We give thanks for the earth we are on at First Unitarian Church of Toledo and to the people who were here before us. We are thankful for the Miami, Peoria, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which includes the Mohawk, to the Wyandot and the Council of Three Fires, Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Ottawa, as well as the Delaware, Mingo, and Shawnee people for our presence on what was known to some as the Great Black Swamp. The Kickapoo and Fox people also have ties to this area. We know that the swamp, which includes where Toledo is now, became United States territory and was settled by white people in large part because of the Battle of Fallen Timbers here in 1794, which enabled U.S. occupation of the Northwest Territory. A year after that battle, Native Americans were sent to live here as part of a treaty with the young United States, when the U.S. wanted to take better land where the Native Americans had lived. In 1794, there were not 5,000 people in what would become Ohio. But 25 years later, there were about 500,000, and the U.S. had taken over the Great Black Swamp and exiled the Native Americans, sending them west. So unwanted land that was said to be too wet to support good community or farming, the Great Black Swamp was developed and became our home. We are grateful that now Greater Toledo is a compassionate region where people of multiple backgrounds and origins live largely in harmony today. Today at our opening words place, we have an in-gathering ritual. For this first selection, Calling of Directions by Jane Altman Page, which we adapted, there are going to be places for you to give a short chant, Gathered Here, which many of you know. Mickey will lead, and you sing along if you'd like. The words for all our song selections are printed in today's order of service. And for you watching at home, if you get the UUFYI on Saturday, the service can be downloaded there. Plus, there's a link in the YouTube description today where you can click on the order of service so you can follow along with the printed words. I invite you to join me in a special in-gathering ritual in which we will gather in energy and love from all directions. Your responsive call is the Gathered Here chant. Some of you will participate perhaps in a more metaphysical sense, and for others your participation may be more metaphorical, and that is fine, for we are Unitarian Universalists, people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands.
As you're able, please rise in spirit and face the east, body or spirit, and face the east. We call out to the powers of the east, representing air and the radiance of dawn. I invite you to think of places to the east of us where you have lived or visited, perhaps places across the Maumee River or across the great Atlantic Ocean. And I invite you to lift to your mind friends and family who live east of here and call on those memories of times with them and their spirits of life and love to be here with us today. If you wish, you may lift their names into this openness before we sing. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Now I invite you to face the south. As we call on the powers of fire that the south represents, we lament the polluting of the great Gulf of Mexico that lies to the south and have heard the cries of our Mother Earth. We are also thankful that with the good energies of loving people and the powers of nature, those beautiful waters are clearing again. And I ask you to think of places to the south of us where you have lived or visited. I invite you to lift to your mind friends and family who live south of here and call on those memories of times with them and their spirits of life and love to be here with us today. You may lift their names into this openness. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. I now invite you to face the west. We call out to the powers of the west, the power of water. We envision wonderful bodies of water to the west, many that we may have visited or hope to visit, and I encourage you to think of them as well as other places you have lived or visited. I invite you also to lift to your mind friends and family who live west of here and call on those memories of times with them and their spirits of life and love to be here with us today. You may lift their names into this openness. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. And I invite you to face the north as we call out to the powers of the north, the powers of the mighty earth, the power of stone and mountain. And the north is home to water also.
including the Arctic Ocean, with ice melting and warning us that we must not wait to change our ways. I encourage you to think of places north of us where you have lived or visited. And I invite you to lift to your mind friends and family who live north of here and call on those memories of times with them and their spirits of life and love to be here with us today. You may lift their names into this openness. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
And now I invite you to reflect and turn inward to your center, home of the Spirit of Quintessence. And in this special place, I invite you to lift to your mind friends and family members who have died, leaving us with gracious memories and, of course, their love. And I invite you to call on those memories of times with them and their spirits of life and love to be here with us today. You may lift their names into this openness. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
As you continue to be centered, please join me in giving thanks by singing Gathered Here once more.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
Amen. Blessed be, and please be seated. We continue with Invitation to Join the Journey by Lynn Cox. You might notice this has references to The Wizard of Oz.
Come, you accidental pilgrims, you who find yourself on a journey of surprise and wonder. Come, you who emerge into this place as an act of liberation. Come, you who seek a life of mindfulness and a place to test your thoughts. Come, you who bring hearts of all kinds, heavy hearts, rusty hearts, hearts broken open in revelation, hearts full of love to share. Come, you who seek courage, and you who have more courage than you realize. Come, you who stand behind the curtain, gathered up the resources to claim your truth. Come, you who have been in a bubble, you who are poised for transformation.
We begin our story again, gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. We gather as people of all ages, of different abilities, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. We share a covenant, a direction for our shared journey, and a commitment to encourage and challenge one another to spiritual growth.
This path will ask much from us. Let us move forward with love. Let us move forward with appreciation for one another. Let us move forward knowing we are not alone. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts, you are welcome to join this journey.
We'll complete the ritual with The Courage to Continue on the Journey, also by Lynn Cox. Spirit of life and love, known by many names and yet fully known by none, we give thanks for this time and this place of renewal. We give thanks for the ability to begin again after the disaster, after the tragedy, after the loss, after meeting the challenge set before us. Grant us the courage to continue on the journey, the courage to speak up for the well-being of others and ourselves and the planet. May we forgive each other when our courage falls short, and may we try again. Grant us hearts to love boldly, to embody our faith and our values in living words and deeds. May our hearts open to embrace humility, grace, and reconciliation. Grant us the ability to learn and grow, to let the spirit of love and truth work its transformation upon us and within us. Grant us the spirit of hospitality, the willingness to sustain a fit dwelling place for the holy that resides in all being. Grant us a sense of being at peace in the world, even as we are in motion. Let us cultivate together the strength to welcome every kind of gift and all manners of ways to be on the journey together. To this we add the silent prayers of our hearts. Blessed be. And now we proceed to our chalice lighting. As I say at every outdoor service, especially one that is as windy as it is today, the purpose here is for ritual and metaphor. We know that this flame will not stay lit here. The flame of our chalice this morning is a symbol of the warmth and brightness of our connections. The flame lights our way back together again from our separate summer lives, and it lights our way forward into this new year, this new church year of promise and renewal. And even the fire stick itself will not spark today. So there is light. And please join me in reciting the covenant of our congregation, which is not a creed or a statement of faith that we all must believe to be Unitarian Universalists, but a concept we hold in common. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This year, we're adding an idea, a question or quotation into the services, words for you to think about. I want to call attention to the fact that we have lives of wonder. You can sit with the question or quotation yourself, or very briefly at times when we share a congregational greeting. I don't think we're ready to add to physical interactions yet because of the COVID pandemic, but when we're back together indoors and in person, we'll get to times of better and, we hope, safe sharing. You might share your response with a friend, or save it till coffee hour when you can have a longer conversation. We might not have a new quotation every Sunday, but we do want to situate ourselves in a state of wonder. I invite you to look for quotations and questions that we might use in future weeks. Send them to me, please, by email, real mail, or text. Today, for our Life of Wonder idea, let me paraphrase a poet who said, "We have one life. It's wild, it's precious." The poet asked, "What will you do with it?" Now I invite you to sing our opening hymn. Today it's Spirit of Truth, with lyrics written by our former minister, Waldemar Argo, and slightly adapted. This used to be sung every week, I'm told. Now we bring it out for special occasions, like ingathering.
Spirit of truth, we come home to this haven, bringing our faith and our hope and our love, seeking
teach us to worship as colleagues of thee. Open our minds to thy message victorious. Fill all our hearts with the triumph of love. Excuse me, I'm going to remove my mask.
As he does that, I will remind us that if you have recommendations of folks that are seeking pianist positions, we will be hiring. Thank you very much.
I'm getting the mask off because it's too fumblesome for me right now. But I do have a little bit of social distance today as well. For our story today, this is Beyond Every Door by Molly Hausch Gordon, and we've adapted it. Who here knows the book The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Do you know how Lucy Pevensie discovers Narnia? Lucy looks for the perfect place to hide and opens up the door to a big wardrobe. She goes through the door and she goes into the back of the wardrobe, and suddenly she's in another world. A magical world with witches and fauns and talking beavers. Wouldn't it be cool if there were a magical world beyond every door? When Lucy opened the door to Narnia, it didn't look like anything special. It was just a boring door to a wardrobe full of clothes and coats. But across its threshold was magic. Lucy already had a foot in Narnia before she quite realized what was happening. Many of the thresholds in our lives are like this. We don't know that we're crossing into another world until we're already halfway there. The door of a church takes us down a pathway of growth we might never have expected. And with our ingathering, we're on the threshold of a new church year. The door of the doctor's office suddenly opens out into life with a hard diagnosis. A restaurant door opens onto a first date and echoes forward into the relationship of a lifetime. A beloved person's door closes behind you and sends you out into the world heartbroken. The door to a library or a gym or a dance studio introduces you to a life's passion you might not have otherwise discovered. We cross these thresholds every day of our lives, for good and for ill, in joy, in sorrow, in bittersweet truth. Truly, even our own front door is a great threshold, no matter how familiar the worlds within and without may be. Given our lives' reality of constant change, every day we open the same old door again, only to step out into a world that is new since the day before. In this way, there is a new world behind every door, awaiting our discovery if we will only encounter it as such.
We now come to a time for music. We've also, you'll notice in the order of service, changed words from we sometimes call them musical interludes or anthems, and they often mean many different things functionally. But we will this year be referring to these moments as centering music. I invite y'all to center within yourselves or to just enjoy a moment of centered art. In honor of this week's celebration, or an observation rather, of Yom Kippur in our Jewish family, we will be singing 1037. This is a reflection responsorial. Yom Kippur is a day of atonement, and it's the holiest day of the year in Judaism. It centers these themes of atonement and repentance, and folks will generally observe this day with a fast and intensive prayer. I invite you, as we hear this narration, to sing along, "We forgive ourselves and each other We begin again in love.
For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
And now I invite you to enter into a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Today on our minds, yes, we have illness, COVID-19, and the continuing wait for a younger children's vaccine, and cancer. We think of change. We sit with yesterday's September 11th anniversary. And we know this is the turn of the year in Judaism, and the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, is coming up. We have gratitude that we can have an in-gathering, even if it's only outdoors, and we can begin a new church year. I have two readings for meditation. Our first, in-gathering oriented, is Welcome Home by Rachel Rote. Welcome, you questioners, seekers of truth with a capital T, pilgrims longing for sanctuary, travelers needing harbor from the storm. Welcome those who are holding on by a thread, determined breakers of the chains of loneliness and isolation. You pushed through your fear because something told you that you deserve to belong. Welcome home. Welcome those who braid ropes again and again. You've been there for our siblings who were just hanging on. You gave them a hand into the community and told them they could rest here. Welcome you who seek spiritual and religious community for your children and grandchildren. You entrust your young people here, and we as a community commit to nurture and respect them. Welcome children and youth. You give us the gift of your wisdom, your joy, your curiosity, and your trust that we will hold all of it safe. Welcome. Welcome home. How do we make this tender place wider? How do we stretch into a bolder welcome, a radical generosity of the heart? Can we imagine ourselves the stewards and ushers, not only into this space, but into our circle of belonging? Can we commit and recommit to being accountable to one another as an anti-racist, anti-oppressive community that centers marginalized voices, that listens to those voices especially when what they are saying is hard to hear? Can we be willing to change? When we break our agreements with one another, can we offer amends? Can we be humble and generous? There is grace enough here. There is in this place the possibility of healing, of repair, of making things right within ourselves, between us, and with the wider world. There is in this place possibility. Welcome home. And I also have the reading, A Place of Belonging and Caring by Kimberly and Tomchak Carlson, and it's been adapted. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home. And let us observe 1 minute of silence.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Our reading today is from the author's introduction in the 1998 edition of Quintessence, Realizing the Archaic Future, a radical, elemental feminist manifesto by Mary Daly, published by Beacon Press, a Unitarian Universalist-owned publishing company. Quintessence is a name for what wild women have always been seeking. It has a misty quality about it. It is that which has drawn me on in my writing and searching. The quest for quintessence is the most desperate response I know to the call of the wild. It means throwing one's life as far as it will go. The quest for quintessence is all that matters. It means realizing our own inherent integrity and participating in integrity beyond that integrity, the ever-moving dance of the universe, the harmony of the spheres. Quintessence is not a noun, but a verb. It attracts us magnetically into its vast and luminous context. It is perfectly natural that we should move and thrive in its wondrous realms. What is unnatural is the soul-shrinking, stinking, man-made mess that they have made of the globe and everything else within reach. When wild women are awakened to quintessence, we are multidimensionally present. We move into further dimensions and yet are more determined to fight for life on earth.
Welcome to Ingathering, as official a start to our church year as we have. I wish it were stronger this year, but we're doing our best not to take chances with COVID-19 and the congregation. So instead of our hoped-for return to indoor, in-person services, we're continuing with outdoor services today and October 10th. That will be a 6-month span of being outdoors at least once a month this year. And the other Sundays will be only on our Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel, at least until the 10th. And our COVID task force is monitoring conditions for a safer return. Please tune in, don't forget about us, and be ready to help remake our congregational life when we can resume in-person indoor activities. We can actually start that now and not wait. So let me have your ideas of how we might start to be more together, even virtually. I probably ought to distinguish between liturgical religious years and our church years, as for most Western Christians, for example, the liturgical year begins with Advent, about 4 weeks before Christmas, in which the believers contemplate the arrival and birth of Jesus on earth. The Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, began last Monday at sunset. The church year, in contrast, is when the congregation comes back together in some more concentrated time after summer, when we're not so active in our church programming and school for kids is out, giving time for family and vacations, and maybe realizing that while church is important, so are our individual lives and relationships. Many congregations have an annual water ceremony for their ingathering. I've chosen not to do so annually, but to cycle through all the elements. The classic elements of water, earth, air, fire, this year's quintessence, which you'll learn more about it being elemental, and getting more contemporary with the periodic table of the elements, probably next year, and an appreciation of all the elements. A 7-year span on which we're observing the 5th year now. I like the water ceremony, and many of you do too, I know, and wish we had it annually. Some bring water at ingathering anyway, perhaps sprinkling our memorial garden with it, and that's fine. But I've been resistant, in part because of history. The water ceremony, as I've learned about it, came from a time when Unitarian churches would close for the summer rather than be year-round, and we now go for 52 weeks a year. And the general instruction for bringing water was for congregants to bring some from wherever they traveled during the summer. The presumption being that we could all take vacations at a distance, and that just isn't the case. Even so, many of us would arrive with no water and use a pitcher of tap water supplied, calling it virtual from your story of where it might have been collected if, for example, TSA allowed you to bring water onto a plane. So instead, I consider that it's the elements that give us a scientific understanding of this world that we know. That for us Unitarian Universalists, this is the world we focus on, rather than living here to prepare for a next world afterlife. And we should celebrate and appreciate the elements, the classical development of how we learn about the world and beyond, and our contemporary understanding. Today we get to quintessence. I first learned about it in high school physics class. I wasn't the best physics student. What I remember is that I wrote a haiku about it in class, probably rather than paying attention to the lecture, in English and French. I wasn't great as a French student either. As I remember it today, the stars are large and mysterious objects which are in quintessence. Les étoiles sont objets grands et mystérieux qui sont dans quintessence. From the Science Fiction Encyclopedia online, I saw the association of earth, water, air, and fire with the four states of matter in physics. Earth a solid, water a liquid, air a gas, and fire a plasma. That entry adds, in context, the classic four are often augmented by a mystical fifth element of spirit, a tradition going back to Aristotle or earlier. That fifth element, which came to be known as quintessence, but began with the name ether, the air above the earth, named after the primordial Greek god of light and of the sky, and at one point the god was the actual element. The website GreekGodsAndGoddesses.net states, while the existence of this mystical fifth element has never been found by scientists, we still use ether's name in common language when referring to the upper regions of the sky, beyond the clouds and beyond the regions where humans can breathe. Bertrand Russell, in A History of Western Philosophy, wrote, about heavenly bodies, every Greek philosopher, whatever he may have come to think in adult life, had been taught in childhood to regard the sun and moon as gods. Anaxagoras was prosecuted for impiety because he thought that they were not alive. It was natural that a philosopher who could no longer regard the heavenly bodies themselves as divine should think of them as moved by the will of a divine being who had a Hellenic love of order and geometrical simplicity. Thus, the ultimate source of all movement is will. On earth, the capricious will of human beings and animals, but in heaven, that unchanging will of the supreme artificer. Russell also discussed Aristotle's treatise on the heavens, which he says sets forth a pleasant and simple theory. Things below the moon are subject to generation and decay. From the moon upwards,
everything is ungenerated and indestructible. The earth, which is spherical, is at the center of the universe. In the sublunary sphere, everything is composed of the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. But there is a fifth element of which the heavenly bodies are composed. The natural movement of the terrestrial elements is rectilinear, but that of the fifth element is circular. The heavens are perfectly spherical, and the upper regions are more divine than the lower. The stars and planets are not composed of fire, but of the fifth element. Their motion is due to that of spheres to which they are attached. All this appears in poetical form in Dante's Paradiso, Russell notes. Russell points out that problems with that simple theory arose, such as comets being found to be destructible, and motion of terrestrial bodies being in a parabola, not rectilinear. And of course, over time, Russell pointed out, the view that the heavenly bodies are eternal and incorruptible had to be abandoned. The sun and stars have long lives, but do not live forever. They are born from a nebula, and in the end, they either explode or die of cold. Nothing in the visible world is exempt from change and decay. The Aristotelian belief to the contrary, though accepted by medieval Christians, is a product of the pagan worship of sun and moon and planets. A PowerPoint presentation for an online class from the site chemistryland.com for a Phoenix College course taught by Ken Cohen gives historical, not religious context. In 600 BCE, the Greek philosopher Thales said that all things are made of water, as it's so prevalent on this planet and all living things consume it. 100 years later, Xenophanes added earth because water and soil are needed for plants and animals eat plants. About 60 years after that, Empedocles came to our elements, bringing in air and fire. It seemed logical because when things caught fire, moisture is released, air can be felt coming up from it, and the ashes show the earth that it contained, the PowerPoint stated. Those four stuck as the classical elements. 40 years after that, the philosopher Democritus added to hypothesizing by proposing atomism, that smaller and indivisible structures called atoms actually formed the pieces of existence. If we looked at the elements in tiniest detail, we would see that they're composed of parts of atoms. Bertrand Russell attributes this to both Democritus and Leucippus, who for atomism say that besides the four elements, there is a void, a nothingness, the ether or quintessence. Space is different from air, you might say. Merriam-Webster, in a supporting article for its definition of quintessence, states that Plato had thoughts about the fifth element, but didn't name it, and neither did Aristotle. They had the concept, but not the term. The chemistry PowerPoint continues. It was about 340 BCE, 60 years after Democritus, that Aristotle said he couldn't believe in atomism because if the gods wanted to, they could make things smaller than atoms. We now know about the parts of atoms, protons, neutrons, and electrons, for example. Plus, the PowerPoint states, the fifth element was so perfect that in contact with base low-value metals, the fifth element could turn that metal into gold. That gets us to alchemy and the philosopher's stone, which we won't get to today. The fifth element could also cure people and keep them young. This started a 2,000-year hunt for a non-existent element. So this rather spiritual element didn't really help combat chaos because no one ever found it. The PowerPoint advances to the 1700s, and the French scientist Antoine Lavoisier, called the father of modern chemistry, who is credited with finding that water is made from hydrogen and oxygen, and air from oxygen and nitrogen. So two of the classic elements have their own building blocks rather than being standalone elements. And more for our Unitarian history, Lavoisier and the scientist and Unitarian minister Joseph Priestley were working at the same time on air, with Priestley discovering oxygen, what he called dephlogisticated air, if I remember David Strickler's recent sermon on Priestley, at the same time, and that air is a mixture of gases, not an indivisible element. That's some of the early science, and we know today that science is continual discovery mode, so our knowledge can change, can develop, can build on previous research and experimentation. That's how we got from earth, air, fire, and water to the periodic table of the elements. For quintessence, let's also look at Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition and some supporting material. Merriam-Webster defines quintessence as one, the fifth and highest element in ancient and medieval philosophy that permeates all nature and is the substance composing the celestial bodies. 2, the essence of a thing in its purest and most concentrated form. 3, the most typical example or representative, the quintessence of calm. Quint is a root for 5 or fifth. Bertrand Russell referred to Dante. Merriam-Webster cites John Milton's Paradise Lost, Book 3. The archangel Uriel gives mention to the elements in his description of the creation to Satan. Swift to their several quarters hasted them, the cumbrous elements, earth, flood, air, fire. And this ethereal quintessence of heaven flew upward, spirited with various forms that rolled orbicular and turned to stars. You see that quintessence is not just part of the development of science by way of philosophy, but also has its place in religion and religious literature. It actually is called spirit sometimes. This is how Mary Daly, whose words were our reading before the sermon, and who was a radical feminist theologian and philosopher on the faculty at Boston College, put it. In Pythagorean mysticism, quintessence is spirit that fills the universe and gives it life and vitality. In ancient and medieval philosophy, quintessence names the fifth and last or highest essence above fire, air, water, and earth that permeates all nature. When I use this word quintessence, it names the unifying living presence that is at the core of the integrity and elemental connectedness of the universe, and that is the source of our power to realize a true future, an archaic future. And now, quintessence has reemerged as a new term, used in tribute to the classical fifth element, but this time related to dark energy, which was discovered in 1998. I got an article on this quintessence written in 2000 by Robert R. Caldwell and Paul J. Steinhardt, found online at physicsworld.com. A revolution is taking place in cosmology, they write, as numerous observations and experiments reshape the field. Many cosmologists are exploring the possibility that the vast majority of the energy in the universe is in the form of a hitherto undiscovered substance called quintessence. Quintessence has the striking physical characteristic that it causes the expansion of the universe to speed up. Most forms of energy, such as matter or radiation, cause the expansion to slow down due to the attractive force of gravity. For quintessence, however, the gravitational force is repulsive, and this causes the expansion of the universe to accelerate. In cosmology, quintessence is a real form of energy distinct from any normal matter or radiation or even dark matter. So far, its existence has only been inferred indirectly from a range of observations, but a number of current and planned experiments will make direct searches for this elusive form of energy. Advanced to 2009 and the site universetoday.com, John Tate wrote, "In modern cosmology, there are also 4 essences, not earth, air, fire, and water, but normal matter, radiation or photons, cold dark matter, and neutrinos, which are hot dark matter." An article from last November at nature.com, written by David Castelvecchi, reports, "Cosmologists say that they have uncovered hints of an intriguing twist in the way that ancient light moves across the universe, which could offer clues about the nature of dark energy, the mysterious force that seems to be pushing the cosmos to expand ever faster. They suggest that the twisting of light, which they identified in data on the cosmic microwave background collected by the Planck Space Telescope, and the acceleration of the universe could be produced by a cosmic quintessence, an exotic substance that pervades the cosmos. Such a discovery would require a major revision of current theories, and physicists warn that the evidence is tentative. It does not meet the 5 sigma threshold used to determine whether a signal is a discovery. But it underscores the fact that modern cosmology still has an incomplete picture of the universe's contents. Quintessence stays with us, mystically, in real conversation representing pure or ideal forms, and now back to a scientific reuse for cosmology. Now I wonder about the quintessence of Unitarian Universalism, a 5th element of oneness. Basically, for the past 50 years, Unitarian Universalism's quintessence has been centered on our principles, now numbering 7, and 8th in development, but perhaps to be revised as a commission is examining the 2nd article of the Unitarian Universalist bylaws in an overdue bylaws mandated review. The many dimensions of quintessence might be instructive, if not in developing the next iteration of Unitarian Universalist principles, perhaps in our congregational comprehension of process and adoption. And the committee studying those bylaws that state who we are, now with the context of Black Lives Matter, of our recognizing a greater Unitarian Universalist need to confront racism, and work for accessing the inclusion of changing society and our own systems, got our religion isn't such an, and realizing that our religion shouldn't be such an elite one, that our liberal religion shouldn't be so elite. Let's hope that the commission will arrive at the quintessential statement of principles and purposes. Let's remember that elements are bases, but they're mutable too. There's room for change, we liberal religious people know, in science and religion, in life, the universe, and everything. Quintessence shows us. So be it.
We come now to our time of offering. If you are so moved and so able, there are many ways to contribute to our work here at First Unitarian. If you have a smartphone, or if you'd like to save it to bookmark at home, you can visit us at uutoledo.org. If you'd like to send in mail, we're here at 3205 Glendale. Or if you're here today and you have a contribution you'd like to make, I direct your attention to the beautiful jar over there. Please induce some peer pressure among your friends. No, nothing like that.
For coming soon, next week's 9:45 a.m. Spiritual Adventures Forum, our member Karen Porter will present on our congregation's Green Sanctuary initiative, and that will be on Zoom. And next week's 11 a.m. service is back on our Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel only. The sermon is Building and Grounds, a virtual tour. We'll show you some of what we've been doing at the church while we haven't been meeting in person, trying to make our space better for when we can meet in person again.
And today, our social time will be immediately after service, and we are here in the yard at 3205 Glendale, so if you're seeing this online, come join us. The rest of us will not be on Zoom. We'll be here. We'll say hi. Enjoy a snack or a drink if you have one. You can grab some food or drink from a nearby restaurant or coffee shop and bring it back if you want to visit. There's a Big-B right there. It's my favorite. I have these closing words by Michael A. Schuler. We have reached the end of this time for the gathering of memory and for letting the imagination play with future possibilities. We have enjoyed magic moments and edified each other. Shall it be concluded then? Or will this adventure, now commenced, continue? Our separate paths converging, meeting, merging, in the unending quest for love more perfect, the joyous struggle for meaning more sufficient, and life more abundant. Is this ending to be an ending, or merely prelude to new, more glorious beginnings? I pose the question. In your hearts lies the answer.
You all see the flame, correct?
Yes.
As we extinguish this virtual chalice flame, we send it virtually into the world. Today, now that we have gathered in, let's send the flame out with our Unitarian Universalist values, principles, purposes into the larger world, hoping that others who share our philosophy, our theologies, our views might join us, and that those who see differently from us might come to understand liberal religion better. The service has concluded. Go in peace.